We are currently living in an unprecedented time for us to let go of living from fear. We no longer have a need to live from fear anymore. Now, what does that actually look like, and what does that actually mean for us? Because fear feels like such a normal thing to experience, right? And at one point, it served a very, very beautiful and important purpose for our self-preservation. Now, we are currently, so many of us are currently living in a way where all our basic needs are met. This means that we can start looking at, how are my emotional needs being met? How am I doing with that? And as adults, it is actually part of our responsibility to overcome any negative patterns or limiting beliefs or fear-based thinking right now, because we can. Because we are so safe within ourselves that we can actually work on those lower dynamics for us to transcend them and come from a perspective of love, of unity, of pouring out love, of giving from a place of love, of loving ourselves so much that we feel safe emotionally wherever we go. When we are triggered, we know that this is something I get to look at within myself. It's not that other person's fault that I am interpreting what they are saying in a way that makes me feel like a victim in this moment, because I am perceiving that person's input as something that hurts me, because my wounds are in resonance with what they are saying in that moment. And therefore now my wounds are reacting, now my wounds are speaking. So, taking responsibility for ourselves and coming into self-mastery of our own well-being is not only possible right now, it is so encouraged right now. We are in a time, in a portal, where letting go of limiting beliefs has never been easier. Where letting go of those dynamics, those wounds within us that are still feeling unsafe, we can overcome them like that. So, I have been speaking quite a bit about our wounds, and in the previous video, which I will link below, I speak about tangible ways how we can actually come into conversation with our wounds and come into wholeness to then shift our perspective, not from the wounds anymore, but from a place of love, from our higher aspects. So I encourage you to check that video out if that is something that interests you. So now we want to focus on the fact that it is our responsibility to make this shift. We can do the practices, like I mentioned in my previous video, to allow our lower selves, our wounds, our ego, our inner children to feel held, to feel like they are looked after by us. And we can, through this shift, come into a way of being where we understand one another, where we appreciate differences, where we feel safe enough within ourselves to know that you having a different opinion than me is beautiful, and we can still love each other. We can still come together. And this also means that we can simply have more freedom and more joy. Because when we are not acting from our lower selves anymore, we are allowing ourselves to feel free, to feel whole, to feel good, to feel joyful, which also helps others to feel that way. Because when we come into contact with somebody who has that feeling of safety, of love, of I'm not going to judge you, it's fine. I'm not judging myself anymore. I actually love myself. So I'm not going to judge you. You can come with me with anything. And I may not agree with what you are saying, but I still love and appreciate you. And I know that you are a complicated being. You have many different layers to yourself as well. And I appreciate that within you. We are multi-dimensional. We have aspects within ourselves which rest on in different dimensions. We are currently experiencing predominantly the third dimension, right? And if you're like, what are dimensions? What are dimensions about? I don't understand. Then I highly encourage you to check out the scientific viewpoint of what they are. And I will also link a video to one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Mattias de Stefano, who goes into aspects and qualities of the different dimensions. And I'm sure there's more information out there as well from a spiritual viewpoint. However, dimensions are, they're not different layers because that's too simple, but just to simplify it, let's call them different layers of existence. So right now we are predominantly living in the third dimension. And from this viewpoint, the physical reality is very important. That is how we can experience physical reality, by having awareness in this dimension. However, as part of our shift, as part of our evolution, we are shifting our perspective to higher dimensions. And some people say that we're shifting from the third to the fifth. We're doing a big jump into the fifth. Now, what that means is that it can't be possible to be living from fear and to be experiencing higher dimensions, because those frequencies don't match. In those higher dimensions, there is more love, more unity, more peace, more joy, more of these qualities are present. So if we are to shift into these dimensions, then we are also to shift within ourselves the perspective. So we have a choice to make. We can choose to keep consuming things that are based around fear. We can keep looking at the news. We can keep zooming in on all those little details of everything that's going wrong, which is what the news are. We all know that there's good and bad. There will always be bad. There will always be things that feel painful. However, the quality of it can change. But if we're always focused on the details, the minute details of what is bad, and we are continuously putting ourselves in that boat of, oh, they did that, oh, I can't believe that, oh, that's so terrible, oh, now they're going to suffer as a cause of that, oh, these people died, oh, that's going on, and we keep focusing on that, then we will keep that story alive. And then we will also keep living more from a viewpoint of fear because we are perceiving that around us. However, there is also so much love out there, so much joy, so much coming together in the most beautiful way, so much accepting of one another the way that we are. That is also real right now. That is happening everywhere. So if we say no to things that create fear within us, like horror films, news, other distortions of reality, if we keep allowing ourselves to consume those things, then we won't be able to see what is loving, what is beautiful, what is so incredible. When we go out in nature, there's no fear. Nature is beautiful. Nature is perfection. The cycles of nature, how animals live, how trees live, tuning into the frequency of nature. It's not about fear. And even when animals do experience fear, because maybe one is being chased by another because that animal wants to eat the other, or they get into a fight, so they have to kind of step into fear. Once that is over, they shake it off and they're done and they go back to normal. So in nature, we also do not live in perpetual fear. We shake it off. We have ways of dealing with it and moving on. Yes, we might feel fear in that moment and then we move on. It might have served in that moment and that's it. Whereas now, our stories keep fear alive within us. So we are exposing ourselves to constant levels of stress by looking at things that make us feel fearful. Even though right now, I may be sitting on the sofa, I have nothing to be scared of. But by me choosing to consume content that makes me feel scared, I am putting my body into a state of stress. And from that state, it's just going to spiral down. Because when the mind is giving the body the feedback that I am not safe, the body's going to feel that. The body will create stress, the nervous system will be dysregulated. And then we will perceive that. And if we don't have ways to shake it off, to let go of it, we're just going to keep that going. And then eventually we're going to burn out because we're continuously putting ourselves into a state of stress. So right now, it is really up to us to recognize that we do not need to put ourselves into a state of fear. It is not necessary. We are so safe for the most part. I know not everyone is, but if you're here watching this video, most probably you are part of those people. And so if you are safe physically, you have such an easier springboard into creating emotional safety within yourself. It doesn't come from anyone else. No one else can give you emotional safety. It has to come from you. Because when you come into emotional safety within yourself, then you have nothing to fear anymore. You can let go of feeling triggered by other people's words. So, what else? What else wants to be shared on this beautiful, beautiful journey of discovery around how to shift from fear into love? When we start coming into recognition that it is our choice to pivot from a fear-based thinking into a thinking of love and wholeness, we start to become really aware of those irrational fears that are still there, that were instilled in us as children and that are now present as adults. And the more we become aware of them, the more we can change them and let go of those beliefs and pivot. We might have this sense of guilt because as children, we weren't free a lot of the time to be ourselves. We had to go to school, we had to do things that we didn't want to do, we had to do things that we knew we weren't meant to do, and yet we still had to do them. So now that we're adult, we get to work with that guilt. Where is it still present? Where do I still feel like I'm not safe to be myself? And I get to love that part of myself. I get to love it, to hold it and to show it that I am here for it, that it no longer needs to run the show. Because the more we act from our heart and from our higher aspects, the easier it is for us to hold those wounded parts of us. And this is where the multidimensional aspect comes in, because we are living in different dimensions where different things are possible. And by doing so, we can actually have a perspective of multiple different beings at one time. So we can experience our fear voice, know that it's there, know that it's real within us, and we do not have to be consumed by it. We don't have to allow it to take over and then feel the fear and be like, oh, I'm in fear. We can actually remain very present with our heart, with our loving side of ourselves, and hear that fear voice, be like, oh, there it is again. Oh, okay. What are you saying today? I hear you. I understand that that sounds really scary, and I've got this. Don't worry, I'm holding you. We're safe. We're safe to do this. And by shifting the perspective from the fear voice to the voice of love, we are then able to have a more joyful experience in our reality. Because that thing that you really want to do, that feels like so much fun, it's like, oh, that sounds amazing. I really want to experience that. I really want to do that. I really want to meet that person, or whatever it is. We're going to do it. We're not going to allow our voice of fear to get in the way. Oh, not today. Oh, I'm not really feeling like it. Oh, I'm feeling a bit ill today. We're not going to allow that voice to run the show anymore. And then through that voice of love guiding us, through our heart being our guide, we simply experience more love. Because whatever we experience within ourselves, we also experience outside of ourselves. That is how we create our reality. And why not? We're alive on this planet right now. Why not live a joyful life? Why not allow ourselves to be consumed by love, to be consumed by fun, coming together in a beautiful way, instead of allowing ourselves to be consumed by fear, by what is not good for us, by wounding, by treating ourselves badly. And making these choices is an act of self-love. It is saying, I love myself so much that I am going to choose the things that are good for me, that allow me to feel rested, to feel joyful, to feel like I am loved, I am cherished, rather than feel like I am not worthy of having the best experience, so I will keep ascribing to that story. It is time for us to make those choices for ourselves. And I invite you to look at, in your own life, where are you at? And there's no judgment. It's normal to have fear within us. It's beautiful. It is energy that we can use. Where is it within you? What are you scared about? Are you feeling guilty? Are you feeling like you're not worthy in some ways? What are those areas? What do you need for yourself, for you to feel good? What can you give your inner wounds, your inner aspects that need you right now? What can you give to them today for them to feel good? What can you give yourself today? Is it a nice walk in nature? Is it going to the spa? Is it going for a nice meal with a friend? What feels good for you today to come more into self-love, into wholeness, more into your true self? Your true self is love, is joy, is light. Your true self is empowered and powerful, and it is within you now, and it wants to be felt. So what can you do today to feel your own inner power? To act from this place, to make better choices, which enable you to have a better life. So let me know in the comments, what is coming up for you as I'm sharing this? How is this landing with you? I'd love to hear more about your experience and what is really benefiting you the most from this wisdom that has been shared today. And if you enjoyed this video, then do give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I invite you to do so. And I'm super excited to see you in the next video.